Shock and grief turned to growing outrage with new information about the fatal shooting of a teenage boy by a Neighborhood Watch volunteer in Florida last month. His name was Trayvon Martin, just 17 years old. And here is the man who claims he shot the boy in self-defense in a newly released call to 911.
This guy looks like he's up to no good, or he's on drugs or something. He's got his hand in his waistband. Yeah, he's a black male.
Are you following him?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need you to do that.
Now, here are the chilling emergency calls from witnesses that follow.
So you think he's yelling help?
Yes.
All right, what is your phone number?
There's gunshots.
There's someone screaming. I just heard gunshots.
There's a black guy down. It looks like he's been shot and he's dead.
We want to bring back our panel now from Washington. Jonathan Capehart, Karen Finney and Professor Michael Eric Dyson. John, in a sobering article that you yourself have written today, you say this: one of the burdens of being a black male is carrying the heavy weight of other people's suspicions. Is that the dynamic that appears to have played out in this horrendous killing of Trayvon Martin?
Yes, it is. And you played part of George Zimmerman's 911 call, and it was that call that I listened to on the web Saturday afternoon that just kept me up. I woke up very early on Sunday morning thinking about that call and thinking about the other call where you hear someone yelling for help and the gunshot. And I just kept thinking of all those times, those conversations that I've had, you know, not conversations, more like lectures from my mother and then stepfather about the do's and don'ts, mostly don'ts, of being, at that time, a teenager. But as I said to my editor, after he read my piece, I said, you know, listening to that call, Trayvon could have been me at that age. I could have been Trayvon. But also recognizing the fact that as a black male, I still could be Trayvon. You know, as an African-American male, it's not, you know, 16, 17, 18, and then you're in the free and clear, if you will. It's for as long as we live that we, as I wrote, carry the heavy weight of other people's suspicions, even when you're going about your normal
and
everyday
your lawful
life.
business. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Professor Dyson, Florida is proud of its self-defense law, which they call Stand Your Ground, where immunity is granted if an individual feels threatened. But when I read that, isn't that a license to kill someone without any provocation? If you induce any kind of fear in me, I can take your life.
Sure, that's the case, and let's be honest and clear here. It's not just the instance of killing someone who you feel threatened by. We know the social construction of threat, the social production of fear around black masculinity, as Mr. Capehart has just indicated, suggests that black men are the vicious target. With vicious particularity, we are seen as marauding, stalking victimizers of white people and others. And so as a result of that, we look more suspicious. It's like when you go to the airport and they say, hey, be sure to turn in somebody who you think is suspicious. As Jonathan Capehart has said, we bear the burden of suspicion and what James Baldwin called the burden of representation, representing every fearful and hateful stereotype of black masculinity that has been projected upon our bodies as the screen of white fear. So I think in this case, this is a travesty and a miscarriage of justice, because had it been opposite, had a white man been shot by a white boy shot by a black man, he'd be in jail right now. George Zimmerman would be in jail awaiting his arraignment to see if he would be indeed convicted or at least brought up on charges that are of murder. And I think in this case, the irony and the tragedy is that this young black man speaks from the grave posthumously, but cannot get justice to this day. We need the FBI, we need the Department of Justice and somebody to intervene to say, let's treat this young man as he is an American citizen, fully worthy of the consideration of the law to protect him. What it didn't do in life, perhaps it can do now in death.
We pray so. Karen, the alleged shooter, Mr. Zimmerman, was warned off by the 911 operator, but still he pursued this teenager. Mr. Zimmerman says he acted in self-defense. But again, I have to ask you, how is it self-defense when you're the one in pursuit of the individual?
Well, and when you're the one with a gun and the child that you are chasing has Skittles and iced tea in his hands, that argument just does not hold up. Look, we also are learning more details about this individual, about his record. He's got a little bit of a record of assault with an officer. There's still a lot of questions as to why he wasn't tested for drugs or alcohol on the scene, why he remains at large, if you will. But, you know, Martin, there's one thing I hope some people can take from this, and that is think about how you would feel if you're white, black, Asian, whatever, if that was your child and you heard a 911 call where it was very clear that the race of your child, that the way your child looked was the reason this person chose to pursue them and kill them. I mean, I think there are so few opportunities to really try to reach across racial lines and say to, you know, other Americans, just feel for a moment what that would feel like and what that is like, because that's what this experience that Jonathan is talking about. That's what this experience that Dr. Dyson is talking about. As a black woman, I can tell you, I get it too. If I'm dressed up in my workout clothes, I've had, you know, the door slammed in my face by neighbors who, you know, will talk to me if I'm in a suit. So the point being, these suspicions that we have, these prejudices that we have, again, I think there's an opportunity to have a glimpse into where some of that comes from and why some of that is a burden that people carry.
John, is this not an horrendous example of why vigilante justice is such a bad idea? And when it's coupled with racial profiling, racial stereotyping, it's just a horrific mixture.
Oh, horrific. I mean, this is a tragedy on so many levels. Again, when you listen to the Zimmerman 911 call and the officer, you can hear him get out of his truck or his car, and the police officer tells him, we don't need you to do that, and yet he goes forward. Not only he chases down Trayvon Martin, but he's also bringing a 9mm handgun to whatever confrontation there is. And you know, one chilling thing, Martin, in the interview that Trayvon's mother gave to Matt Lauer this morning on the Today Show, she said, "You can hear Trayvon screaming for help. That was my baby screaming for help." When you hear that, how can you not feel for that family, for Trayvon, and for all parents?
Indeed.
Martin, you know, the other thing is, you know, we're having this national conversation about some of these immigration laws and racial profiling. This is racial profiling.
Yes.
This is what happens when it goes too far. This is why we're pressing these issues.
Indeed.
It's not an abstract.
Karen,
right, and then when it's combined with the kind of lethal forces exercised by the state or by a citizen that has been legally armed by the state, this is why gun laws target black men and black people in general with vicious particularity. And this is why we need to address this, because it's bigger than Trayvon Martin. It's about all of us who are vulnerable to these kinds of arbitrary exercises of power and lethal force.
May God rest that young man's soul. Professor Michael Eric Dyson, Jonathan Capehart and Karen Finney, thank you so much. And
Thanks,
at
Martin.
6 p.m, my colleague, the Reverend Al Sharpton, will interview the father of Trayvon Martin, as well as the family attorney, right here on MSNBC.